I said that if the playthrough video of Legends Arceus got 7 likes, I would do a review on it. Well, let's see how many likes it got. Well then, seems like I've been outsmarted. Well played. This is basically going to be a critique about the Pokemon game called Legends Arceus. How long this video is going to be, I have no idea because I'm writing the script right now and I'm not recording anything yet until I get it done, but you'll see. I will not only be critiquing this game, but also giving it praise if it deserves it. Keep in mind, this is my first time doing a video like this, so if you do have any feedback, points, arguments that you want to get off your chest, let me know in the comments. Either way, sit back, grab a snack and a drink, and let's fucking go. Pokémon Legends Arceus is a game about Arceus. You know, the entity that never got released in Gen 4 because it was too godly for its own region. Well, when I say that it's about Arceus, it's not really anyway. It barely shows up in the game, only during the very beginning and the very end. Well, and at times he calls you on your phone. Wait, if you're 15, is that legal? I mean, what are the rules in the Pokemon world for certain gods calling minors on their phone? Is 15 even considered a minor in this world? Either way, you start off being teleported back in time by God himself, because he wants you to fix some wrongdoings that have been going on in the past. If this is how God intervenes in things, then this is a really stupid way of doing that. Why kidnap someone from the future if you can also just tell people in the present that something is up? Or is it the past? If you pick someone from the future and you give that person a phone, wouldn't that automatically alter the future in some way because you have a piece of technology with you that doesn't exist yet in this timeline? Wouldn't that speed up some form of technology in the Pokemon world? And there you go, in my first 2 paragraphs we already have more questions than answers. You find yourself washed up on Prelude Beach, and you get rescued by Professor Laventon, the guy that gives you the Pokédex in this game. This Pokédex isn't only empty, it doesn't exist, since the world technology wasn't invented yet. Well, unless you count the phone you got. Laventon takes you to the Galaxy HQ, and that's where you meet Celine. From here on out, you can probably tell that a lot of these characters look like other characters. That's because most of these are actually ancestors of the characters we know from earlier games. I didn't even realize Kamado, the chief of the Galaxy HQ, was based on Rowan up until someone told me that it was him. I tend to be stupid sometimes. Celine, Laventon and Asian Lucas then help you to start learning the new mechanics of the game. PLA throws a lot of switcheroos here. The main way of getting things now is not by buying them, but by crafting them, for example. More on these gameplay mechanics later on. After a lot of dialogue and some side missions, which are optional I might add, you can go to one of the Wardens of Hisui. These Wardens belong to either the Diamond or the Pearl clan, and they are set to protect or at least watch over the so-called noble Pokemon of the region. These are Pokemon that are regional variants or completely new evolutions from older Pokemon. The thing is that these Pokemons have started to frenzy thanks to the hole that has opened up above Mount Coronet. They claim it's some sort of thunder that starts these frenzies. To quell these frenzied Pokemon, you have to throw bombs at them with their favorite food to hopefully calm them down. Now, of course, since you're new at this, they wouldn't trust this job to a 15-year-old who came from the sky, right? It's Pokemon, so whatever you say anyway, your argument is invalid by default. The Diamond and Pearl clans are known for having problems with one another for pretty much forever. I won't go into detail too much about these guys, even though they are very important to the story, since their arc can be summed up in one sentence. They hate each other, and by the time the story ends, they can work together. From here on out, the story stays the same until the very end. Quell rampaging nobles, catch Pokemon to complete their Pokédex entry and continue to the next area. Eventually you get expelled from your village, since Kamado made the smartest remark in the entire game, which reminds me a lot of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. Bad events started to happen as soon as you came into the picture, so you must be the one responsible for it. Even though correlation doesn't equal causation, I can see where he is coming from. It's not that bad to think that right after you showed up, everything went to shit, so you are the one responsible for it. I like this take. Then, when you get to the very end, you get the chance to choose between the Diamond and the Pearl clan to help you with the legendary Pokemon. If you choose Diamond, you get Dialga, and if you choose Pearl, you get Hydreigon. According to what I've read, Dialga and Palkia got enraged because Giratina managed to manipulate the space-time rift above Mount Coronet. The other legendary will be pretending it's Arceus, this because it's pretending to be Arceus? If you know more about why they are pretending, let me know. I find this part very confusing and thus will not be giving any opinion about it, despite the fact that it's confusing to me. After catching and beating the legendary Pokemon, there's only one more thing to do for the storyline, getting all the Arceus plates. To do this, you must defeat a couple legendary Pokemon from the 4th generation, and other errands. Once you've done all of those, you can finally fight Arceus. Except for one thing, or well, a few. But one of these things is that Volo is calling you up on Mount Coronet. Here, he shows you that he has the last Arceus plate, the Ghost Plate. It was given to him by none other than Giratina himself, which he, let me cite this correctly, Dropping his false persona, Volo confesses that in order to meet Arceus, he contacted Giratina and had it tear open the space-time rift, which directly caused the noble Pokemon to rampage and led to the player's arrival in Asui. He discards his Ginkgo Guild uniform and reveals that he possessed the Spooky Plate all along, demanding that the player hands over the rest so that he may meet and subjugate Arceus, then use its power to destroy and recreate the world. You got that? Okay, good, let's go on. Then the final battle commences. Volo uses most of Cynthia's Pokemon and has a stunning theme, which is also based on Cynthia's playing in the background. Once you beat him, he will not give in just yet. Giratina pops up out of nowhere and it seems that Volo has control over it, ordering it to, keep in mind that I'm paraphrasing here, kill you. Yes, this man is Jetsus all over again. This is a very hard battle, not because Volo's team is that hard per se, which it is, don't get me wrong, but the real problem here is it's a 8v6. Giratina fights you right after the battle with Volo, giving you no chance to heal or anything. Now I hear you saying, Harley, you absolute legend. Giratina is only one Pokemon, so this is a 7 versus 6. Where's the 8th? And that's where I tell you, you're both right and wrong. There are 7 Pokemon, but Giratina is both the 7th as well as the 8th. Once you've defeated its alternate form, it turns into its origin form, which you have to fight right after, again, with no healing. This wasn't a hard battle because there were good strategies involved that I didn't see coming. This was a hard battle because it is unfair. The problem here is the distinction between hard and unfair Pokemon battles. Hard battles are based on good strategies or overpowered Pokemon like legendaries or pseudos. Unfair battles are ones where you have the low ground from the very beginning, like in this case, having 2 less Pokemon than your opponent. Don't get me wrong, I do like the fact that Pokemon is giving us harder battles again, but the distinction I just named is the problem that I have with this battle. I want harder battles, AI that uses more strategies, like in BDSP for example. The league there goes exceptionally hard, especially in the rematches. Volo being unfair comes from the fact that you have no chance to heal, and you will not have an advantage in this battle unless you overlevel like I did. Even then I had to heal mid-battle, which is against my own rules. Nowadays I play Pokemon without healing during battles. Even if you do not have these rules in place, you're going to be heal spamming for a while. The only reliable way to do this is probably Toxic Styling Giratina, but then still, you're reliant on spamming healing items. Volo's reasoning for doing this is saying that he's had a tough life. His childhood, his youth, his life was unfair. Because that is the case, he wants to summon Arceus to gain control over it and reshape the world. Destroy it. Start over again. Wait, why does that sound so fucking familiar? He starts to speak to Arceus directly, asking him why he's not allowed to meet him, what he's missing, what qualities he's lacking, what problems he has. Basically he's saying, God, why am I not worthy of your presence? Once the Celestial Flute turns into the Azure Flute, Volo realizes Arceus chose you over him. He takes his leave, but not before saying that there will be a time where he uncovers all of the secrets that Hisui has to offer and take control over Arceus. And it doesn't matter to him how much time that takes. Weeks, years, centuries, it does not matter, he'll be back. With the story now told, we can go over the flaws and the better parts. I've already asked a couple questions about some holes in the story that I don't really like regarding the phone aspect, for example. Why didn't they do this through something like the Dimensional Scream in PMD Sky? The player had visions in that game upon touching stuff, whether it is from the future, present or past, it doesn't matter. Anything but a phone. A thing that I do like is the fact that Volo, the ancestor of Cynthia, is now actually portrayed as the bad guy and Celine, the ancestor of Cyrus, is a good girl now. It shows that despite you being a descendant of a person that either did good or bad things in life, it doesn't mean that you are the same because you're of the same blood. You do not have to be a killer because your dad is one, you also don't have to be a saint because your mother is one. The storyline in itself though is based on a lot of dialogue. I think that this game would have been much better if it had voice acting. A lot of people have been saying this lately and that amount just keeps growing every year. You can only convey so much emotion through dialogue. Another part comes from the cutscenes, but I think most comes from the voice acting. Hearing someone say something you can actually relate to makes conveying emotions much easier rather than just looking at a few characters looking away from a blinding light saying absolutely nothing at all. Another bad point is that, much like most Pokemon games, most of the game is just bland. The Quelling Pokemon is a good spin on the formula of just beating 8 gyms over and over again, but transforming that concept into 8 Pokemon that you have to throw sacks of food at doesn't really spice it up that well. The story doesn't even have a proper pace either, it just comes back around every so often. Most Pokemon games have a problem with this, like I said earlier. It's just that most of the story gets told at the very end of the game while you only get a small handful at the beginning to make do. This game has a lot of characters, and when I say a lot, I really mean a lot. In fact, it has too many of them. Can a storyline have too much characters? Yes, it can, actually. The problem with the amount of characters within a cast can be one of the following to me. Too little amount of characters means the audience might get annoyed with some of these characters, and the arc the characters take can be done too quickly or too slow. Because they get much more screen time, the writers have to find a way to even this out during the storyline. Too much characters means the exact opposite. The audience can't keep track of all the characters and what their arcs are. The writers give them too little screen time, which means the characters' arcs don't get explained well enough, don't evolve, or people just completely forget about them. Arceus has the latter option. It has too many characters. Sure, you have the Professor and your friendly rival, Asian Lucas, but you also have Kamado, Irida, Adamant, Celine, Volo, Aretsu, the three sisters, the one from Black and White, that also fell from the sky but lost his memory. I actually forgot to talk about this character during the storyline. He plays a bigger role in this. But half of the time he's too fucking stupid to remember any of it, so yeah. It just makes the game length even longer. These are just the ones that I know from the top of my head right now as of writing this. But there's so much more than just these. The Guardians of the Noble Pokémon are also present. And like I said, there's just so much characters in the story that most of these just have 5 minutes of screen time before never seeing them again. And you only need to see them for the nobles themselves. Some do make a comeback and help you, but it's not enough to justify their characters nor their arcs, if there is any. The only ones that I think have this kind of story arc done well is Volo and the one of Kamado. Although Kamado's arc is just, okay kid, here's your new assignment. Okay kid, you're out of this crew despite the fact that you've done well within the guild. Okay, I was wrong to kick you out of this crew. That's literally all there is to his story. Apart from Volo's addition to the story, it's what I've been getting used to with Pokemon. Really slow storylines and a lot of dialogue. It's not that the story is bad, it's just mediocre. There's nothing else to say, it's just nothing grand, nothing like Jetsis beats the shit out of his son and decides to manipulate him on a later age as well, you know? Which is quite sad, actually. I like it when dads decide to beat the shit out of their children. Hold it. I'm not defending Jetsis, I'm just saying that people need motivations for their choices and reasons for making them. Then again, Volo outright stating that he wants Giratina to kill the player is something we don't see a lot of in Pokemon. Also happens in Black and White too, where Jetsis wants to turn you into a popsicle. The storyline is just so-so. It's meh. It's not good, but not bad either. It's just another Pokemon game with a mediocre story, much like most of them. I know it's really hard to write complex storylines, especially when you have to keep the PG rating as low as possible. But if that's the case, then how the fuck did Gen 4 and Gen 5 get that PG rating? There have been a few new mechanics in this game, like the game not forcing your Pokemon to evolve. Instead, it lets you pick when you want to evolve it now, as long as it has reached the criteria it needs to evolve. I quite like this, because sometimes you don't want your Pokemon to evolve because of moves, or just because you love your Turtwig dearly. Why the fuck would you ever want to turn your beautiful Turtwig into a Grottle? What the fuck is wrong with you? Another mechanic they've thrown out there is your Pokemon now being able to relearn its moves anytime in Jubilife City. There's a woman called Zissou, and she's quite big. Or are we just small? But yes, you don't need any shots, all you need is the balls to talk to her. The catching Pokemon works differently too. You can now throw Pokeballs yourself in the overworld without any problem, and even better, if the Pokemon are not having you in their line of sight, you can throw them and have a higher chance of them being caught, or if you initiate a battle, the Pokemon will be stunned for a bit. Pokemon also have different ways of interacting with you. Some run to you and greet you, some run away from you, others attack you. You can actually die in this game, although it resets you and throws out some of your items. You now also have to craft literally everything, because Pokeballs haven't been invented yet, or well, the predecessor is here, the technology just hasn't been invented yet to mass produce them. This has its drawbacks since you only can carry very little in your own satchel, despite the fact that you can upgrade the amount of slots in it. The last thing I want to mention is the attacking forms. You have Strong Style and Agile Style, on top of the regular just attack the opposing Pokemon regularly style. I've got to say, this is a nice new take on the formula, which is immediately thrown in the bin again as most gimmicks are. Mega Evolutions, Z-Moves, Dynamax, Gigantamax, Eternamax, they're all strictly bound to their region, except for Megas. They were in Alola too. Why was that again? Were they that good? Despite the fact that it's a new take on the formula, I don't think it worked for me that well. Just because first of all, I forgot about it 90% of the time, and second of all, I personally don't really care about this mechanic overall. It's like Z-moves. Sure, they have a nice animation, but I didn't really care for them, unlike Megas. Fun fact, I've played through Sun and Ultra Sun multiple times, and I still to this day have never used a Z-move. I don't know why though. I like these gimmicks, it's just that I don't care for them too much. Especially the fighting styles, they're forgettable to me. Overall, I would say that the mechanics are great. I really mean that. The thing is, most of these haven't been polished enough yet. The crafting especially. There is a solid base there, it just needs some more finesse, if you get what I mean. At this point, just steal the foundation and everything from Minecraft. I just realized that Minecraft hasn't done it properly yet either. Fuck. What can I say about the graphics? It's Pokemon alright. It looks like a Pokemon game, so it's probably a Pokemon game. If you don't know what I mean by saying that, I personally think that the highest grossing franchise of all time has to be able to come up with better graphics. If a much smaller franchise like Zelda can do it with Breath of the Wild on the same console. I don't see an excuse for not making them better. The world feels bland. I know that nothing is built in terms of cities just yet. Well, Jubilife is there, but the rest isn't. But the lush environments that Sinnoh had to offer, the battle park with its gorgeous tropical setting, Snowpoint and its snow everywhere. The swamp is around, the Snowpoint temple is already there, and the battle park is there, kinda? I mean, it's only a volcano with a boss fight, but it counts, I guess. Despite the fact that it's all there, it's just off to me. I'm missing the vibrant and colorful textures. Instead, all I see is grey, rainy and depressive things. At night, sure, it's supposed to look a little darker, but even during the day, the grass, trees, rocks and floor just feels like one solid mash of potatoes. There's no other way I can describe it than that. The game is just not that colorful, which you should expect from a Pokemon game. Especially if Diamond, Pearl and Platinum and in recent memory, BDSP do the same to the Sinnoh region. People have been defending Game Freak for years on end now, saying that they're on a tight schedule because the fans want a yearly new game to consume. But honestly, I haven't heard about anyone that actually has said this. Why would you necessarily want a game annually, especially if you start seeing that the game isn't polished? I'd rather have them take more time to give it more details, fix the bugs and everything, rather than them throwing out a half-assed game which I have to pay full price for simply because it's a AAA franchise by name. Come to think of it, I just said something about bugs, but Legends Arceus actually holds up pretty well in that department. There are barely, if any, bugs at all within the game that I can remember as of writing this. Or I might just be stupid and the game was a glitch fest, but nah, that's not it. Not with this game at least. A great Pokemon game for me is all about the storyline, the characters, the region and the mechanics. The new Pokemon are not as important, even though they make up like 99% of the game. But the game has to feel full of everything, which consists out of the things that I just mentioned. Sure, Pokemon fill the game up as well, but it's the other things that make it come to life. There's no Pokemon without humans, as there's no humanity without Pokemon. Now, of course, you have to make a distinction between several groups of Pokemon fans. You have the collectors, the children, and the man-childs who still play it for nostalgia's sake. I fall under all of these categories. That aside, Pokemon's fanbase is quite diverse in terms of age. I know people that are 8 years old that like this franchise and play the games, and that there's people that are over 30 that jumped in from Generation 1 and still play it till this very day. Everyone in this entire goddamn world has at least heard a mention of the word Pokemon. Or that fat but not so fat anymore electric cheese string of a mascot called Peek at You. Where I'm going with this is that it's hard to make a game for all these age groups and still have a good game while you're at it. And that's where the problem lies. Game Freak has not made a decision whether to stick with the younger or the older generation, so they go for all of them and that gives them an unclear vision. For those of you who are saying that Game Freak is obviously going for the younger generation, then think of this as my counter to that. We have breakback bears and balloon pedophiles in this franchise. It says so in their Pokédex entries. I wouldn't let any of my childs anywhere near a game that has these type of texts in it. At least that was if I was a responsible parent, which I'm not. So here you go, little Harley, enjoy your time with the 6 Drifloons you got from your dad. I'm ranting about this a little too much, isn't it? Well, my point is, if they make a decision on Woods 4, then you can actually set the tone for the game better. I can tell that this game is directed at the older generation of fans, because you can actually die in this game, even though it doesn't say it out loud. And of course, the legendary Volo quote where he says to Giratina, "Strike her down." Well, or him if you pick the male character, I just picked the female because I like Dawn a lot. But yeah, they have to tone it all down so they can get their age rating down. Again, I really like the game's concept, but it just doesn't nail anything. Game Freak has a habit of 1 step forward, 2 steps back the last couple of years. It is the first try at this, so I'll give it a little slack. Another thing that I really dislike about the game is that Arceus' screen time is barely anything, even though he's the one that is named on the cover of the fucking box art. Yes, he sets everything in motion, I get it, but the depiction of God always having a plan within franchise, a series of movies is just a fucking nuisance at this point. Even at the very end when finding Volo, he doesn't intervene even though Giratina is literally going to kill you. The entire plot is basically leaning on one person who isn't even from this era, but still has to fix all of their shit even though everyone, especially you, has no idea what the fuck they're doing for the entirety of the game. Arceus doesn't intervene in any way. He just says, "Hey yo bitch, you're almost an adult, right? Alright, let me hook you up with a nice tally and then you can go solve world hunger and poverty." Seriously, Arceus, what the fuck? Give him somewhat to do. Let him protect you when Giratina attacks you or something. He's God for God's sake. Okay, a positive note. Be honest with me, you like some of these new mechanics as much as I do, right? I mean, not having to click B every 5 seconds because your Pokemon is trying to evolve for the 20th time. Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't add that sooner. It's also the only game where this was added, because this critique isn't only late, it's so damn late that we already have an entire new generation. I did this on purpose though, I also base my perspective on replayability. Speaking of, this game has none for me. I've seen everything during my first playthrough and I don't see the need of redoing that. There's just nothing to come back to. Once you've done all the missions and caught all the Pokemon, there's nothing left. Sure, one final secret boss fight against Arceus, but that one is locked and opened only if you've caught all other Pokemon in Sinnoh. I mean in Sui. I mean, fuck it, it's the same region, who cares? Again, I'm giving this game a lot of criticism and such, but I'm not going to lie to you, I had a blast playing this on stream. That can be counted by me saying I have fun with every game for the first time, but the value for me comes in coming back to it weeks, months or even years later. Despite that that's not the case, it doesn't mean that I didn't have fun when I was playing it. It's just that the game is not as good as I want it to be. Overall, this game is worth a 6.5 out of 10 for me. Not bad, but not good at all either. This game is buried on a landslide of small mechanical and graphical changes that should be made to make the game feel and play better. You can see this game as a spin-off, but for me it's just like a Lola. It changes some of the core aspects, like taking out the gyms and throws something else in there which has the same base. If there is a slight darker tone to the story and the game had voice acting and had its graphics optimized and made more beautiful, then this could be considered as one of the best games Game Freak made in recent years. But because it doesn't have any of these things, it's stuck to a couple changes that prevent it from ascending to heaven to reside with Arceus where it should belong. Game Freak has to make changes, like picking a group within the fanbase so the story can be at its best, loosening their game release schedule and perhaps adding some more staff to their crew. If that's not the case, then I'm afraid we'll continue to have these games and have potential to be so much more, but just couldn't get there. As long as nothing happens, everything stays the same, which is precisely the problem. Hot damn, I'm poetic.